lacking now.
That's our kill. We know where we can look for tracks of life for sure.
Hello friends, and welcome to another mystery. Today's video, I tell you the story of the Sierra Bigfoot sounds that took place in the Sierra Nevada mountains. So sit back, relax, and let's get the scare over.
Wanna go insane, I'm a lonely guy. I give you my all, but it's been my fault when I get upstairs.
In the early 1970s, two men ventured deep into the untamed wilderness of the Sierra Nevada mountains in California. One was a journalist, a man of science, and the other, an outdoorsman, and they was curious but skeptical about the rumors of something strange lurking in the woods. What they encountered in those remote mountains would lead to one of the most compelling and controversial pieces of evidence in the quest for Bigfoot. That being the Sierra Sounds. These eerie, unexplained audio recordings of strange vocalizations would later be analyzed by experts, baffling researchers and cryptozoologists for decades. This is the true story of Ron Morehead, Outberry, and the Sierra Sounds, told in haunting detail. Our story begins in 1971. Ron Morehead, an avid outdoorsman, was part of a group of hunters who regularly visited a remote camp high up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. This camp was no ordinary camping ground. Located more than 8,000 feet above sea level, it was completely isolated from civilization, no roads, no trails, and certainly no easy access to the outside world. The only way to reach the camp was through a grueling hike, several miles deep into the wilderness. The area was as untouched as it could be, a prime location for hunters and those seeking solace in nature. The group had been using this camp for years without any issues. They were familiar with the local wildlife, the mountain weather, and the eerie silence that comes with being so far removed from society. But that year, something changed. As they settled in for what they assumed would be another routine hunting season, they began hearing noises. At first, the sounds were faint, barely perceptible knocks and distant howls that could easily be mistaken for animals or even the wind. But soon, the noises grew louder, stranger, and more unsettling. There was a pattern to them, a rhythm, that suggested intelligence. The hunters, seasoned as they were, had never encountered anything like this. They knew the sounds of the Sierra Nevada, from the rustling of deer in the brush to the howls of coyotes in the distance. But this was different. These sounds seemed deliberate, purposeful, and almost human. Morehead, intrigued but cautious, couldn't help but wonder if they were being watched. One night, as they sat around the campfire, warming themselves in the frigid mountain air, the noises returned. Only this time, they were much closer. The strange vocalizations pierced through the night, echoing off the trees and bouncing across the mountains. What they heard was a series of guttural growls, howls, and strange, rapid-fire chatter that sounded like something trying to speak but failing. The men froze. The sounds were unlike anything they had ever heard in the wild. These weren't the howls of coyotes or the calls of owls. It wasn't the sound of a bear or mountain lion. The sounds were too complex, too intelligent. The group listened intently, trying to make sense of what was happening around them. The noises would start from one side of the camp and then, almost instantly, be heard from the opposite direction. It was as if the source of the sounds could move faster than anything known to man. Tension filled the camp as the hunters exchanged nervous glances. Morehead, while unnerved, decided to take action. If they couldn't explain these sounds, maybe they could at least record them. Ron Morehead wasn't the kind of man to jump to conclusions. As strange as the sounds were, he needed evidence before he could say anything definitively. He needed someone who would approach this situation with a scientific mindset, someone who would keep a cool head. That's when he thought of Al Berry. Mr. Berry was a reporter and a seasoned investigative journalist with a background in science. Known for his logical, level-headed approach to everything he did, Berry wasn't one to indulge in wild fantasies. When Morehead approached him about the strange occurrences at the Sierra Nevada hunting camp, Berry was intrigued, but skeptical. He had heard rumors of Bigfoot sightings in the area, but like many in his field, he had never seen anything to convince him that the creature existed. But Morehead's story piqued his interest. The vocalizations sounded too strange, too deliberate to ignore. So Berry agreed to join Morehead on the next trip into the wilderness. Armed with a high-quality cassette tape recorder, Berry set out with the sole intention of capturing the strange sounds Morehead and his companions had described. It didn't take long for the eerie phenomena to occur again. As the group sat in the dark wilderness, surrounded by the towering trees of the Sierra Nevada, the noises returned. This time, however, Berry was ready. He pressed record, capturing every sound that drifted into the camp from the dense forest beyond. The resulting audio tapes would go down in history as the Sierra Sounds, recordings of what many believed to be actual Bigfoot vocalizations. The sounds on the tape were nothing short of terrifying. There were loud whoops, rapid-fire chatter, and strange whistling noises. Then there were the deeper, more guttural growls, like the sound of an animal, but with a tone that felt far too deliberate to be just an ordinary creature. At times, the vocalizations sounded almost like a conversation, two or more entities communicating with each other in an unknown language. After returning from the hunting trip, Morehead and Berry knew they had something truly unusual on their hands. The tapes were eerie, to say the least, and neither man could explain what they had heard. So, they sought the help of experts. The first person they consulted was Scott Nelson, a retired Navy cryptolinguist with expertise in analyzing foreign and unknown languages. Nelson listened to the Sierra Sounds tapes and came to a startling conclusion. The sounds, he believed, were not random. They exhibited patterns, syntax, grammar, and structure, much like a spoken language. Nelson, who had spent years decoding complex languages for the U.S. military, was convinced that these sounds represented a form of communication, possibly even a primitive or unknown language. He referred to the phenomenon as Sasquatch language, and spent years studying the tapes in hopes of unlocking their full meaning. But Nelson wasn't the only one intrigued by the recordings. Dr. R. Lynn Curlin, an expert in electrical engineering and sound analysis, also analyzed the Sierra Sounds tapes. Dr. Curlin's focus was on the physical properties of the sounds. Were they within the range of a human voice? Could they have been faked? After running a battery of tests, Dr. Curlin reached a shocking conclusion. The vocalizations captured on the tapes went beyond the physical capabilities of the average human. The creatures, if they were creatures, that made these noises had a lung capacity far greater than a human's and could produce sounds at both extremely low and high frequencies. According to Dr. Curlin, it would have been nearly impossible for any known human or animal to produce the sounds on the tape. This revelation added credibility to the idea that something unknown was lurking in the Sierra Nevada mountains. As word spread about the Sierra Sounds, Morehead and Berry found themselves at the center of a growing cryptozoological debate. Were these sounds the vocalizations of a previously undiscovered creature? Could they really have captured the voice of Bigfoot? The recordings were made available to the public, and soon, cryptozoologists, researchers, and curious individuals all over the world were listening to the eerie sounds of the Sierra Nevada mountains. The Sierra sounds became a topic of discussion at conferences, in research papers, and on television programs. Some hailed the recordings as the most compelling evidence yet for the existence of Bigfoot, while others dismissed them as an elaborate hoax. But Morehead and Barry stood by their story. The recordings, they claimed, were 100% genuine, captured in real time at a remote camp that was nearly impossible for outsiders to access. For them, there was no question that the sounds were authentic. Not everyone was convinced. Skeptics argued that the sounds could have been faked, that someone could have deliberately produced the strange vocalizations to create the illusion of a Bigfoot encounter. After all, the Sierra Nevada was home to thousands of species of wildlife, and strange sounds weren't uncommon in the wilderness. Some critics pointed to the lack of visual evidence. While the audio recordings were undeniably eerie, there were no photos, videos, or physical proof to accompany the sounds. Without a clear visual of what was making the noises, skeptics argued that the Sierra sounds could be attributed to a wide variety of sources, both natural and man-made. There were even those who suggested that the vocalizations could have been produced by humans using specialized equipment or voice manipulation techniques. But proponents of the Sierra sounds pointed to the remoteness of the camp, the difficulty of accessing it, and the sheer complexity of the sounds as evidence that they could not have been faked. As the years went by, the debate over the Sierra sounds continued. Ron Morehead and Al Berry would both go on to publish books, give lectures, and share their experiences with the world. Morehead, in particular, became a leading advocate for the existence of Bigfoot, traveling the world to speak about his experiences and the mysteries surrounding the Sierra sounds. His book, Voices in the Wilderness, chronicled not only the recordings but his continued encounters and research into the phenomena, which spanned decades. Morehead came to believe that the sounds weren't just evidence of an undiscovered animal species but potentially something much more mysterious, even paranormal. This theory extended beyond the physical realm, suggesting that Bigfoot might be capable of telepathic communication, or that these creatures possessed abilities beyond human understanding. Al Berry, on the other hand, remained more grounded in his approach. Though he never outright dismissed the possibility of Bigfoot's existence, he was careful not to sensationalize the recordings. For Berry, the Sierra sounds represented a mystery that needed to be approached with scientific rigor. He continued to advocate for further investigation and more research, but remained cautious about drawing any firm conclusions. His skepticism helped lend credibility to the recordings. If someone like Berry, a trained journalist and scientific thinker, couldn't explain what they heard, then maybe there was something truly anomalous about the Sierra sounds. In the decades since the original recordings, the Sierra sounds have become a cornerstone of cryptozoological research. Numerous researchers and investigators have analyzed the tapes, each coming away with their own interpretations. Some believe the sounds are irrefutable evidence of a large, unknown primate species, while others maintain that the recordings could have been faked using advanced vocal techniques or even early audio technology. Yet, no definitive explanation has been provided, and the Sierra sounds continue to mystify those who listen to them. Scott Nelson, the Navy cryptolinguist who analyzed the recordings, has been one of the most vocal proponents of the theory that the Sierra sounds represent a language. In his view, the vocalizations exhibit clear signs of linguistic patterns, such as repetition and structure. Nelson spent years attempting to decipher the sounds, and even developed a speculative transcription system for the vocalizations. He firmly believes that whatever produced the sounds was attempting to communicate, even if we don't yet understand the language. Over the years, the recordings have been featured in numerous documentaries, television shows, and podcasts, including those focused on Bigfoot research, paranormal phenomena, and unexplained mysteries. The Sierra Sounds have achieved almost legendary status within the Bigfoot community, cited as one of the most compelling pieces of evidence in the ongoing search for the elusive creature. Morehead's experiences with the Sierra Nevada mountains didn't end with the recordings. In the years that followed, he claimed to have had several additional encounters with the mysterious entities in the area. According to Morehead, these encounters weren't limited to vocalizations. On several occasions, he and his fellow hunters reported strange, unnerving phenomena that they couldn't explain. These included objects being thrown at their camp, strange lights appearing in the sky, and even shadowy figures moving just beyond the range of their flashlights. Perhaps most chilling was the sense of being watched. Morehead and the others frequently felt as though they were under constant surveillance by something lurking in the woods, something intelligent and calculating. The combination of the sounds, the strange occurrences, and the elusive nature of whatever was making the vocalizations left an indelible mark on everyone involved. Morehead began to embrace more spiritual and metaphysical explanations for what was happening in the Sierra Nevada. He speculated that the entities responsible for the vocalizations might not be purely physical beings, but something more akin to interdimensional creatures or beings with extraordinary abilities, like the ability to cloak themselves or move at supernatural speeds. As Morehead dove deeper into the world of cryptozoology, he began to encounter other researchers who believed in a connection between Bigfoot and paranormal phenomena. This group posited that Bigfoot was not merely a physical creature living in the forests, but was tied to larger mysteries involving UFOs, interdimensional travel, and even spiritual energy. For many, this explanation was too far-fetched, but for others, it offered a potential solution to the age-old question of why no physical evidence of Bigfoot has ever been conclusively found. The idea that Bigfoot could phase in and out of our dimension, or had the ability to evade detection through supernatural means, gained traction in some circles. Morehead himself became open to these possibilities, though he stopped short of fully endorsing any specific theory. The Sierra Sounds, with their complex and otherworldly quality, seemed to lend some credence to these ideas. The vocalizations, after all, were unlike any known animal. They didn't fit neatly into the existing framework of natural science, which led some to believe that the explanation might lie beyond the material world. Despite the intrigue and enthusiasm surrounding the Sierra Sounds, skepticism remained strong. Many critics argued that without any visual evidence or physical proof, the recordings alone weren't enough to make a definitive case for Bigfoot's existence. Some suggested that the sounds could have been faked by skilled ventriloquists or through early voice modulation techniques, although those who had studied the recordings in depth were quick to point out that no known human could produce the range and frequency of the sounds captured. Others pointed to the remote location of the camp, arguing that it would have been nearly impossible for someone to set up a hoax without being caught. The isolation of the Sierra Nevada hunting camp, accessible only by foot and hidden deep in the mountains, made it highly unlikely that pranksters or opportunists could have staged such an elaborate ruse. Even so, the lack of a clear explanation continued to frustrate those searching for concrete answers. For every expert who believed the sounds represented a genuine mystery, there was another who was convinced that a more mundane explanation must exist, even if it hadn't yet been discovered. Today, the Sierra Sounds remain one of the most enigmatic pieces of evidence in the ongoing search for Bigfoot. Though Ron Morehead and Al Berry have both passed away, their legacy lives on through the recordings, which continue to captivate and confound listeners worldwide. The Sierra Sounds have become a part of Bigfoot lore, standing alongside other famous encounters like the Patterson-Gimlin film, and the hundreds of eyewitness reports that have been filed over the years. For many, the Sierra sounds are more than just eerie noises captured in the woods. They represent the tantalizing possibility that something truly unknown is out there, hiding in the forests, waiting to be discovered. And as long as the Sierra sounds remain unexplained, the debate over Bigfoot's existence will continue. Cryptozoologists, researchers, and adventurers still venture into the wilderness, armed with audio recorders, cameras, and a sense of curiosity, hoping to capture their own piece of the puzzle. The Sierra Nevada mountains, vast and untamed, still hold their secrets. The question that haunts those who dare to explore them is the same one Ron Morehead and Al Berry faced on those cold, moonlit nights in the 1970s. What is out there, lurking in the darkness, and will we ever truly know the answer? The Sierra sounds are not just a story about Bigfoot, they are a reminder of how much we still don't know about the world around us. Whether the sounds are evidence of a cryptid, an elaborate hoax, or something even more mysterious, they continue to spark curiosity, fear, and wonder. The Sierra sounds remain, as they always have, an unsolved mystery. So, what are your thoughts on this story? Do you think that the sounds are legit? Or do you believe it was just a hoax? Let me know your opinions down below. And until I upload another video for your entertainment, thank you for watching, and may God bless you and your families. Stay safe.